Just got back from work. I heard a very interesting statement today from one of my esteemed co-workers, somebody who has trained me, and they're a very kind and loving person, but at the same time, they made me doubt the educational system within the United States. What I'm trying to say is, what they made me doubt the legitimacy of the teachers and professors and so on and what forth that are uh, sitting in the head of our classrooms and so on. Now, my mother's in college, my sister's in college, and they don't have any complaints about it. But I find myself to be increasingly distrustful of such an educational system, and let me elaborate on it a wee bit. My co-worker said to me today, white people do not have a culture. And I was a little bit shocked, her coming from Latino background, Mesoamerican background, that she did not even seem to understand how European the culture she was raised with truly is. We know that a lot of the customs, not all of them, but a lot of the customs and ways of life in Latin America are fashioned off the old world, especially the Iberian Peninsula, which is Portugal and Spain, with some Italian influence and so on. So they really do owe a lot of their culture to European society. And that's a very distinct culture, which is the culture of Iberia. That in itself should be an eye-opener for them to pursue farther into maybe studying who the Europeans are, their history, and their incredible diversity. The poison that has inflicted them cannot be blamed on them, or they cannot be put down because of their lack of knowledge. In the United States, very early on, there became a development of the idea of races being easily classified into white, black, brown, red, yellow, and this was an insanely uneducated approach, even amongst the forefathers, the white forefathers of the New World, because before the discovery of the New World, there was English races. There was considered to be more than one race just in the British Isles. There was, the races of the British Isles. The Mannish were considered different from the Irish Celts. Certain Irish Celts were different from other Irish Celts. The Welsh considered themselves their own race or nation. There was elements of Picts, Scots, Britons, Saxons, Norsemen, and so on. And Normans, which were essentially a mixture of French and Scandinavian culture. So there was a great diversity just in the British Isles of cultures. And these cultures had their own languages, their own ways of dress, their own music styles. They may have different religious beliefs, and a lot of times they, even after Christianization, they held different holidays than the others. The idea of a universal Christmas or that or the other thing. No. Even if you go to Ireland today, you'll find them tying rags at the old sacred wells that the pagan Celts used to worship, that the Catholic Church later rededicated to certain saints. And you'll find that they are still following that tradition. And you don't see that everywhere. That's something you see just in Ireland. In Scandinavia, you see the Yule log on winter solstice, and that kind of pagan celebration of winter solstice, which is an Indo-Aryan thing essentially. When I say Indo-Aryan, I'm talking about from northern India all the way into Western Europe. So these people who are called Indo-European, Indo-Aryan peoples, the people who speak the Indo-European languages, and not all, and we have to remember, not all white people are Indo-European. You have also the Finns, whose language is completely unidentical to any Indo-European language. Their phonetic structure and so on is completely alien to it. They're white, but they are not European. Even though their country's in Europe, their ancestry is unknown. They are definitely not native to Europe, but they are not part of the Indo-European group. Another group are the Hungarians or the Magyars, which tradition tells us are descendants of the Huns. And the Huns being a nomadic Asian group that would have come from originally the same areas of the steppes of the Altai Mountains in Mongolia and the Lake Baikal and that region. So their language is also non-Indo-European. Their culture is very distinct to the rest of Europe, and even amongst Indo-European civilizations and cultures and races there are differences. The rich tapestry of what makes an Indo-European has unfortunately been cheapened by this idea of trying to neatly classify these races, and these races being some of the greatest inventors and philosophers and lawmakers and builders the world has ever seen. I mean, nobody can argue the fact that, at least from an unbiased point of view, the greatest part of history, the greatest parts of history have been a constant argument or a struggle between the Eastern Asiatics of Japan and China and so on, and Indochina, further south in Southeast Asia, and the inventiveness of Europe and the Middle East. Each of these three great societies, and I'm talking about Europe proper, the Middle East, the Iranian Plateau, India, Indochina, China, Japan, they all vied with each other, not only through warfare but economically and so on. And the result of that conflict was they've really created a powerful identity amongst themselves. It is a separate identity. Now, the problem that has come from this trying to neatly classify these races is that the blacks suddenly feel that they're part of a black race. The brown people, especially those of Latin America, you hear it more amongst them than you hear it from India or basically, especially in Latin America, you hear brown people, we're brown people. And they feel that they are unique in their culture, and they're right. They are right. They have unique cultural characteristics that one cannot even begin to try to put a substantial argument to say that the cultures of the Congo are in any way comparable to the cultures of the Yucatan, the Maya and the Aztecs and so on, or the Inca down in the South American continent. It is easy for these people then, these college-educated people and so on, to be able to say, well, I respect the culture of the Inca, or I respect the culture of the Zulu. But it becomes a thorn in their side when you start talking about European history, because all they know is this very Marxist idea of class and racial warfare, right? And the way Marx went about it is he actually did divide the races in a similar way to, well, actually just right along the lines of those very faulty philosophers of the 16 and 1700s that were trying to create this. I forget the name of the man who coined the term Caucasian, but it was because he had this theory that because the oldest skulls resembling the Europeans found at that time through their primitive archaeology were found in the Caucasus Mountains, he theorized that then we must have originated in the Caucasus Mountains, when by now, the 21st century, we can realize that the Caucasus Mountains were just part of a constant push westward by people who shared many of our physical characteristics and founded our languages and cultures and so on. This is something that I'm imploring everyone to delve into a little more. I mean, study it a wee bit. Try to learn about this. Try if you don't feel that any nation, I don't who they are, any race, any nation, if you don't feel they have a culture, do a little bit of studying on their history, right? Study their language a little, study their foods a bit. You know, because what is a culture? Culture is made up of the language, of the music, of its contributions, but also its different characteristics that make it unique. And that is what a culture turns out to be. Um, Even subtle differences. To an outsider, certain traits you find in Norway seem similar to those in Sweden, but at a closer look you find that even Sweden and Norway have slightly different cultures, and nobody can doubt that Great Britain and Hungary certainly have powerfully different cultures. Um, and every culture has something unique that makes it beautiful. And I mean, every culture in the world has something that makes it worth studying. Be it from the Australian Aborigine all the way to ancient Rome. All of these are worthy of our time to sit and learn and study and hammer out just what life is. Because this earth, this whole earth it's a brutal existence. It can be a cruel existence, but at the same time, the flowers bloom in the spring and the snow flies in the winter. If you're in the temperate zones, of course, or the Arctic. But what I'm trying to say is, we all live on this planet together, and we live in a time of mass communication. There is plenty of chances for the most ignorant person to, when he opens his phone, try not to Google search what's going on with the Simpsons today, or Family Guy, or whatever, and go on there and actually, learn. I mean, because I'm going to tell you something. Every group of people, every nation has a culture. And if you find something that you think is a void, and you say, well, I don't know about it, therefore it must not have a culture, go and study it. Go and study it. It is time for us as descendants of our great forefathers, who were undoubtedly some of the greatest men to ever show up in history, to do them the honor of educating the world about who we are. We know that, especially amongst white people, there has become an incredible disdain for their own blood and for their own history and language, to the point where, and I was one of them, they start seeking to imitate cultures that are not theirs. Now, to study and to immerse yourself in someone else's culture is a beautiful thing. It is. To learn about new foods and new thoughts and ideas and all of that, it really is beautiful. But don't become so immersed that you lose yourself. I mean, remember your bloodline and remember who you come from, and try to work towards a mutual respect. And we're not seeing mutual respect when you have people screaming white power and lighting mosquito torches. At the same time, you're not seeing it when you have a truck driver drug out of his semi in Los Angeles and hit in the head with a brick just because he was white. Or the murders in South Africa, which are taking a great toll on women and children, especially, unfortunately, very young children who are being made to suffer in the most terrible ways. That is not mutual respect, and that is not trying to bridge a gap or heal the world. That is really trying to foment farther racial divides and hatreds. And in order to heal, we, the most powerful people in the world, undoubtedly, the Indo-European peoples, I mean every nation that belongs to it, if you combine our wealth and our powers and our resources, we are the most powerful people in the world. But we are strangely the laziest people, really we are, because we are not asserting to the world, we're not showing ourselves proudly to the world. We're running from a past and shaming ourselves for just the most ridiculous things. And the time for shame is over. The time for hiding is over. Stop apologizing. And for the rest of you, stop asking for apologies. Let's extend our hands in friendship and work towards a better future and learn about each other. And I can tell you something. I'm just fine with waking up to a little bit of Scottish oats in the morning, going to bed after a plate of goat flour biryani at night. You know, it's that's our modern world, and that's what we can choose to do. We can choose to love and respect each other's cultures without distancing ourselves from our own. Well, uh, that's all for this video. I've been up for just pulled a 13 something hour shift, and I'm tired. Uh, I have a good job, thank God, and good people I'm working with. And I'm really starting to, as I pull out of my old ways of alcoholism and drunkenness and so on, and start experiencing a sober world, I'm starting to really feel the different shades of humanity. And it casts a lot of thought. It causes me to think a lot more, um, not only of myself or my people or my family, but of the world in general. And I would love to think that one day people can learn to enjoy life, you know, and maybe enjoy each other's company rather than try to put down each other or shame each other. Because this is not the Middle Ages, it's not the ages of crossbows, and there's no more need to pillage or plunder to survive. So let's parade ourselves proudly and kiss our neighbors, hug them, and show mutual respect. As Canada says, or as the Canadian idea, let's live in a salad bowl and stop trying to live in a melting pot. Because a melting pot becomes a sludge, but a salad bowl, you have all those beautiful vegetables together and they all make up the flavor of that salad. You know, you wouldn't want a lettuce salad only, you want a salad with a little spice in it and everything. And that's the world we live in today, so let's enjoy our salad together. This has been me, George, and for all you viewers out there, remember to subscribe and also contact your local governments and try to really press forward something for the Boer Afrikaners, the white South Africans who are right now suffering under a campaign of genocide against their people and their culture. Um, and pray for all the victims of genocide and hatred around the world, because our healing starts by helping those who are the most unfortunate. Over and out.